Welcome to Simmons Says, where I help emerging and struggling writers create intriguing plots and compelling characters to make their stories hard to put down and even harder to forget. Here I am again. Let me try this on you here. You got your hero in one of the most amazing traps possible, and as a matter of fact, it's almost impossible for him, she, them to get out of it, but they got to. Just not sure how. Or how about this? You've got a mother and a daughter in a major argument, the tension's building and everything, and one of them is about to release some piece of information, some hidden family secret that could destroy their entire relationship. Just not quite sure how to express that or exactly how they should phrase it. Or, okay. The third one. Your story has been going along fairly well. The plot is actually unfolding nicely. A couple of really nice moments with the characters, except it sort of drags. 3 chapters in, and there's no energy, and it's really kind of weighted down. I mean, you know something's wrong in each one of these, but how do you fix it? That's what we're here to talk about today. So, welcome to another episode of Simmons Says, where I try to help you determine what happens next in your stories. And today we're going to work on how to fix a scene that isn't working. So let me start with some of the basics. Why most scenes don't work. The obvious one, we start with the wrong thing. Cosmetics, we dress things up. We put more spectacular elements to the world around them. We add in some trendy phrases or a bunch of curses, because hey, if everybody's effing and that says power, that says anger. Or we throw in a fight scene or we blow something up. The problem is you don't fix a dragging scene, a confusing plot problem or plot sequence, or a reveal some sort of information for that your characters are wrestling with. You don't do that by hyping things up, by gimmicking things up, by guessing at what might work and throwing it in there and hoping for the best. What you do is you identify the problem first. You really drill down and really look at what the problem might be. The difference between polishing a broken scene that doesn't work, again, putting stuff over it, almost like trying to paint over the scratches and the dents, right? The problem with that is it's not structurally sound. It may look pretty, but once people hear it or read it, it falls apart. And then they're more dissatisfied. It looked great, it's not working. You feel bad, they feel bad, nobody wins. A quick example, reviewing a dialogue scene that's not working. They're in a nightclub or something like that, and the scene is not working. The characters are not saying what they need to say, and subsequently the tension is not building, or even the humor is not flowing. So you just throw in arbitrary things in the background that's gonna, well, it looks great, but you haven't solved the problem. Right? Identify the problem, solve the problem, then anything you put around it becomes garnish. Yes, we're going to talk food metaphors here today. Let me try another one. For every scene that you're working on, there are 3 questions that you should be able to ask yourself. 1, what does someone in the scene want specifically right now? What do they want? What are they after? Not what's the overall goal, like, Frodo in Lord of the Rings, well, get the ring back to where it belongs. That's a long journey. But scene for scene, what did Frodo want? What did Bilbo want? What did the other characters, what did each character want? What did Gandalf want in that scene? So what does your character want in a particular scene? Then the conflict. What's in the character's way? It can be something complicated or something simple. It can be shyness and embarrassment, and yet they have to speak in front of someone. And what they have to say is important, but they can't get past the feeling awkward or shy or embarrassed or whatever, the ridicule that's coming at them, whatever. So, what's in the way of them doing the thing that they want or need to do, right? Does anything change by the end of the scene based on what they do or don't do within the scene? What changes? So, what does the character want? What's in the way of the character getting or doing the thing? And does anything change? How is what they do or don't do, how does it affect the scene? If you can't answer these, any one of these, but in particular, if you can't answer these, then you need to drill down more. You need to do some more thinking, get some more information flowing, something about the character, something about the scene, something about the particular goal. You need to get clear on that particular thing and fix that. And then once again, whatever you build around it, well, that's just dressing. The solid structural part, the most important aspects of it, or like, as I like to say, the heart of it works. So everything else around it looks even better. It serves better. And here's something that I'm going to refer to later on. There's one more trick that you can utilize if a scene is giving you a lot of trouble, but I'm going to hold that one off until towards the end, okay? So let me continue. Now, I've talked to you about how to sort of explore a scene and how to maybe approach fixing it in a couple of ways here. But let's look at what are some of the more common scene problems, all right? So, for instance, okay, no conflict. Now, I have sometimes my students or my clients will say, well, I don't really want a conflict in this moment, or I don't really want the story to have a conflict. It's really like slice of life. Well, slice of life is very nice if you want it for like 2 minutes. You want to watch somebody sit and watch the birds fly across the sky, or ducks float across a pond, or ants crawl across your leg, whatever. But 85 minutes of doesn't fly with the majority of your audience. They want to be moved, they want to be affected, they want to be entertained. And there's some art forms, either, in book form or in film form, that yes, it's just a happening. It's just a gentle view of a thing, of a circumstance. But those are the exceptions. There is an audience for that. But if you're talking your mass audience, if you're talking about trying to hit the largest possible number of your potential audience, then they want to be moved and affected and engaged. So the conflict doesn't have to be something physical. You don't have to have a shootout or anything like that, but there needs to be a conflict. You know, maybe a choice that a character has to make and they're struggling with it. Or again, an external conflict. Somebody is opposing what the character wants to do. So no conflict. Everything just sort of stays at a flat tone or flat mode. And that then can affect the pacing or the tension of your story. Okay. So you have a conflict. What's at stake? In some situations, like this is a movie called The Holdover, um, which seems in and of itself structurally, there's not a lot going to be going on. You have sort of a college, sort of you have a rural upscale college where students come away to this college and they live on the campus and they study and all that, and then eventually in this particular case they get to go home for the holidays, and it's Christmas holiday, and this one young man who's a bit of a problem, but anyway, he has no place to go. His family's not getting together with him, and I don't want to give too much away, so he has to stay at the school. Well, the majority of the school is empty, right? Yeah, there's places to, he can stay at the dorm and everything, but there's almost nobody there except for a cook and one teacher who has no family to go join and is kind of cantankerous and, strict and not very ingratiating and really would rather be left alone. But he's now got to stay and deal with this kid. So you got some friction in terms of personalities, but hey, what else can possibly, what's going to entertain me for 85 minutes? The character dynamics are one. Yeah, there's some conflict there. But then there's something that happens that causes the boy to have to do X or else. And those stakes are high. They're emotionally important to him. And as the teacher gets more involved, it influences something that he's going through, and there are stakes involved. If he does what he's going to do, it puts him at risk. So now we have, okay, you two don't get along that well. And now there's something that has to happen that's going to put you in some sort of jeopardy. Well, see, now we're layering the tension, we're layering the conflicts, we're layering the stakes, and so each scene builds on the previous one, taking us towards the climax. This is how you keep your audience engaged. What's going to happen next? How are they going to handle it next? Oh my God, I hope this does. Oh, that really, oh, geez, now they're never going to. That's a part of it. What are the stakes? What's to be lost or gained? Another one, another problem. Too much information, a lot of exposition, right? You've got to eventually learn how to dole out information in an engaging and entertaining way, in what seems like an authentic way. You don't want to have your characters just speaking the information so it sounds like they're preparing a report or delivering a report. You want to have them speaking in such a way that it sounds like natural conversation. And yet we are picking up on all these things that are really important for the story. So too much information, and again, school report, just enough. Okay, I've learned a little bit something in this scene, but I need to know more and on to the next scene. So now it's doling out the information in proper proportions, raising the stakes in proper proportions, maintaining the conflict in proper proportions. These things again begin to layer and build the tension in your film. There was a movie that I was really rooting for a few years back. It's called Red Tails. I was rooting for it because personally, it was a story about the Tuskegee Airmen in World War II, Black fighter squadron that protected American bombers over Europe. And the story had been told in a made-for-TV movie with Lawrence Fishburne. But here was a shot at a major motion picture, and there'd been a lot of denial and pushing and shoving in Hollywood over the years about nobody wants to go see that, no one's going to care about it, yada, yada, yada. And a producer of some serious experience and renown decided to make this film happen. And I was really rooting for the film, so much so that I was sitting in the movie theater February, because it's Black History Month, and it was 10 o'clock in the morning. I was there for the first showing of this film that day. And within the first 3 minutes of the movie, I cringed. I was concerned. I was deeply fearful that this was not going to be the film that I had hoped it would be. And I wasn't wrong. I'm sorry, sir. I know he'll never hire me. I'll live with it. But the reality was, and I really I think this had more to do with maybe the directing than the writing, but almost every scene was upcut or downcut. Upcut, it ended too quickly or it ended too late. Mostly, it ended too quickly, it ended too early. The scene's going along, there's almost beats to a scene. Such and such happened, such and such happened, such and such happened, off. It's almost a 3 beat. It's almost like jokes, right? And those 3 beats allow you to build the tension so that your audience gets just like that. And then you're out of the scene and on to the next scene. And we are waiting for what's going to come next. And this scene, in almost every scene, action or dramatic, it ended too early. just by a beat, just by a beat. So you want to be careful when you're writing for film, when you're writing a short story, when you're writing a novel. You want to make sure that your scene plays out accordingly. What has to happen? What information has to be shared? The beat of tension or the beat of release, and on to the next scene. This is something that you're going to be able to develop more so by being able to do this next thing, which is after you've written it, you maybe made some changes, X'd out a few things and whatever, read it aloud. Give yourself that benefit of reading your story out loud because we will hear when things don't work better than sometimes when we're looking at it on the page. Sometimes when we're reading the page, we are reading what we think we put in there and not necessarily just the words. So, reading your scenes out aloud, whether it's again a book or a script, you hear the speech patterns, you hear the descriptions. And if it doesn't sound right in your ear, you can make certain adjustments. In particular, dealing with dialogue. If a character isn't speaking in an authentic way, authentic to that character, you're going to hear it. And if you don't, read it aloud with some other people or have some other people take the various parts and read it, and you sit and listen and you will hear it. Let me do one more thing, okay? And this is where I said earlier that I was going to mention something later that connects to where we were at that particular point. When you're trying to identify what's wrong with the scene and then trying to fix it, well, here's an important thought. Not every scene needs to be there. Sometimes the scene doesn't fit because it's not needed. And that's another thing you want to begin to develop your ability to do. You worked out a plot and you've maybe worked off of an outline and you've written that story based on that outline and you've pulled together your characters and they're working pretty well and your dialogue's working fairly well and it's a couple of other things that just aren't gelling. Maybe the pacing's a little off or whatever. Well, I think it's this scene here. Well, I'll just keep working on this scene until, no, maybe the scene doesn't belong. You may love the scene. You may think it's some of your best writing, but if it doesn't fit, cut it out because it'll do more harm than good. You can take that scene and maybe use it later or not. Use it in another story. And I know some of you are going to say, yeah, well, I heard about such and such a famous writer. They were published, their books were published, and later they reinserted a whole bunch of content that had been cut. Yeah, there's not 1,000 writers who are doing that. It's a select few. And I guarantee of the select few who do get a chance to do that, a select few of those, it actually works. Good writers, good editors cut things for a reason. And the fact that someone can lobby to have it all put back in doesn't mean that that's necessarily the most beneficial thing. Your job is to write a tight, good, solid, working story. If you want to be verbose, if you love the sound of your own voice and you love reading your own words en masse, then fine, write stuff just for you. Fine, do that. Or keep one of the original drafts, and that's your private joy. But for your marketplace, for your audience, your job is to turn out the best possible story you can so that they get the most entertainment from it, or they learn something from it. They're lifted out of their own doldrum into this world that you've given them this peek at. They're moved by these characters. They're inspired by this particular tale. That's your job. And if you do that job well enough, you get to pat yourself on the back and then start another one. Okay, that's it for today. I trust that you'll find some, if not all, of this material, all of this instructions, all of this information useful to you. And I want you to be here for the next episode when I will talk about what makes a character feel real. Okay, we talked about story structure, but now let's niche down, because really, what do people come to the movies to watch, or what do they read the books for? It's not just the backdrops and the settings, it's the character that gets us to go on that journey. So the next time on Simmons Says, what makes a character feel real? That, and I'll spend a bit more time trying to help you figure out what happens next in your story. Take care.